Well, game one didn't go quite the way we wanted it to, but it doesn't mean that we're not ready to rock and roll here on the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always. The good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. As we talk Royals baseball, what happened last night as we recorded, if you're catching us via the podcast, it is Sunday night. That's when we generally go live here at 10 p.m. Central Time. You can be a part of the equation. Be in the chat room. Be a part of the conversation right there if you'd like to join us. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. What else we got? Twitch. Got it all. We got it all. YouTube, of course, the big boy. You can catch it right there. We'll talk about what happened last night in game number one. Where was the bullpen? Did the umpires rob the Royals of a win? Anything Matt Quatraro got wrong in this game? What should the Royals do differently in game two? Should they stick with the same lineup? How much does the legacy of this season ride on what happens in the series? We're talking about it right now here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
This is the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. The Royals down 1-0. We didn't have to experience this in the Orioles series. Didn't experience it much in 14 and 15, Rany, so it's a little bit of a different feeling here to see the Royals down, but it was an entertaining game. It was one that they were very much a part of and could have won. Do we say they should have won?
Yeah, this was definitely a strange feeling in the sense that the Royals lost a playoff game by one run. Do you know how many times they did that in 2014 and 2015?
Probably none, I'm guessing.
Well, once.
Once, though. The game
once, yes. With the once. The game, we don't want to talk about that game. But yes, one time. The Royals won 7 games by one run in 2014 and 2015. They also won 3 games in extra innings by more than one run. So in games that were decided by one run or went extras, they were 10-1 in 2014 and 2015. They were 2-0 this year coming into this game. So it's kind of a weird feeling to have a game that the Royals lost where we can actually say, what if? We can say, if only this, if only that. Like, this is a strange feeling. Thankfully, unlike the one and only time this happened 10 years ago, they have a chance to come back from it. So they need to play better. They need to get a little luckier. Certainly, we can talk about some of the umpire decisions, both on the field and in the replay center that contributed to this. But we also got to look at what the Royals could have done better, both on the field and in the dugout. There's a lot of blame to go around. You know, with all that said, they played the New York Yankees in Yankee Stadium, you know, very, very tight. Like this, maybe the emotion on the field wasn't the same as it was in 1977. We didn't see any brawls break out. Al McRae didn't land on top of a shortstop making the pivot or a second baseman making the pivot. George Brett didn't punch anybody, but the game in terms of the drama, I mean, you probably heard this is the first game in Major League playoff history to have 5 lead changes. Like, it was a dramatic, exciting game, but those are the games where when you lose, you start to, play it back in your mind as to what could we have done differently, what could have gone differently, and that makes it a little frustrating.
Yeah, it does. And, I do think that the umpires got it wrong on the stolen base, which ended up being the game-winning run. So I think that was a giant call to screw up, and I don't really understand how you miss it. Like, you can see when that the foot is short, and then you can see the foot kind of, wobble when it gets to the base, it seems pretty clear to me. And if the broadcast clearly thought he was out, I mean, those are trained baseball people that are looking at it.
But Soren, you're forgetting that the announcers were clearly biased towards the Royals. The announcers, Bob Costas, who to this day I think still carries, he says this openly, a baseball card of Mickey Mantle in his wallet, and Ron Darling, who played in New York for the Mets for a decade. When they're the ones saying on TV, yeah, I think he's out, and then he's called, the call stands. Extra frustrating. I will say, I had, even listening to their commentary, I had absolutely no faith that they were going to overturn the call, because this was not the first time the Royals got boned by the replay center this season. Not even the worst call by far. I mean, the quote unquote home run at Kauffman Stadium that very clearly went off the black scaffolding bar that was holds up the fair pole, and may have, changed the outcome of a game, in July. That one of the most bizarre replay decisions I've ever seen. And I think fundamentally the problem is that we all assume, if you're going to have a replay center to review calls, that the standard, the official standard is quote unquote clear and convincing evidence. And I think you and I would say, if you're 99% sure that it should be overturned, then it should be overturned. And I think they're simply operating with a standard of, if you have to be 99.999% sure. Like, if there is any doubt, reasonable or not, they are not overturning these calls. And I do think we've reached a point, and the Royals, Michael Massey and some of the other guys after the game were careful not to say anything that might get them fined or something. But we're making this point which is, we've reached a point where if it's this difficult to get something overturned, why are we bothering to have a replay center? Like, you have to use at least a tiny bit of common sense. There was daylight on replay. All right. Would it be nice if we had like an over the bag bird's eye view that would have made it 100% clear? Yes, it would be. But we don't have that. But we can't let the limitations of our technology keep us from making overturning a call that is almost certainly, maybe I can't say certainly, but almost certainly incorrect.
Yeah, it just, for me, I don't get. I think it's kind of preposterous. I mean, I like it. I watched the game initially on a phone. Okay, I was at a wedding, and on the phone, I was like, well, I think that's pretty good. We even kind of enlarged it.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and watched it on TV, and I just don't understand it. I just don't understand how you come away calling him safe, and that ended up being the game. Now, listen, there's been a lot of comments here, and I agree with all of them. Walking in 2 runs, sending Salvador Perez around third base. The Royals had plenty of self-inflicted wounds. Yes, there was ample opportunities for them to still win this game without even with the call going against them. What was the other bad one?
Well, to me, that wasn't the worst call. The worst call of the game was the 2-2 pitch from Michael Wacha leading off the 5th inning. He was, allowed to stay into to face the lineup a third time. We had talked about this before. I really didn't want him to go more than once, but he was pitching well enough. I'm like, you know what? Okay, 2 times through the lineup. And I'll give Quatraro credit, because he was ready to take him out of the game. He faced Gleyber Torres for the 3rd time, leading off the 5th inning, and he struck him out. The 2-2 pitch it didn't graze the strike zone. You can, we have StatCast data there. That one is clear and convincing. Like, half the baseball was inside the strike zone. It was absolutely on the textbook on the corner 2-2 pitch, called ball 3. He walked him. Quatraro took him out and said after the game, I mean, if he had gotten him out there, I don't know if Wacha comes out of the game if he's at that point, if Gleyber strikes out. Now, I would have argued he probably should have anyway, and I think Quatraro, I have no second guessing about his decision to bring on Angel Serpa, but it didn't work. Serpa, was not throwing strikes after getting out of the huge jam in Baltimore. He did not. He created a jam this time around, walked in a run. But that whole inning, both runs in that inning, probably do not score if they simply call a 2-2 pitch right on the corner, strike 3.
Yeah, I agree. I also thought Bobby Witt had quite a case in the ninth inning. That ball was low, and I think the strike zone showed it to be low. I mean, I know sometimes you get that call. I can't tell you that again. I didn't go back and watch the entire game. Like I said, I was watching on a phone at a wedding reception, as was half the wedding reception. I might add. Myself and Todd Lebo crowded around his phone, but you know, but the Royals have to play better, and I think there was an element. Somebody mentioned, hey, playoff games in Yankee Stadium are just different. I agree. And was it as simple as nerves? Like, do you think that's what it was? That the stage is so big at Yankee Stadium, the crowd's so raucous, and the pinstripes got him?
I mean, there's no question. Not just the history, but the stage, right? The sounds, the lights, everything about it, and the Yankees themselves. You have to assume when you're there, yeah, you're not going to get the borderline calls. Like there's just that overpowering. What do they call it? Aura and what was it that Kurt Schilling called it? Aura and mystique, right? That they're just girls at the strip club. They're not real things. But the point is that too many players go into Yankee Stadium and they feel the ghosts, right? They feel the weight of a century's worth of Hall of Famers there. I don't know that it got to them. They did walk 8 batters, and I know a lot of people are like, well, you can't walk 8 batters. I do want to make the point that walks are a hitter stat as much as they are a pitcher stat. And all these people are like, well, the Royals walked 8 batters. The Yankees led the leagues in walks drawn. This is why I keep banging the table about the Royals learning to take pitches at the plate. One of the reasons why they walked 8 batters is because the Yankees did not swing at all those borderline pitches, right? Like the Yankees deserve probably more credit for taking 8 walks than the Royals pitchers deserve blame for issuing them. With 1 or 2 exceptions, most of them, ball 4 was a borderline pitch, and it was taken, and it was a smart take. And I wish the Royals would, use that weapon, put that weapon in their arsenal as well. But to me, it was the other mistakes that the Royals made. The absolutely inexplicable send of Salvador Perez that would, that took a bases loaded, nobody out situation and a chance to really get to Garrett Cole and maybe knock him out of the game early. And, was an easy out at the plate. How much of the blame goes to the third base coach versus Salvador for running? Like, I know he's slow, but from when we don't see him run all the way down the baseline, but you see him hit third base. And then from that moment till the time he shows up on the screen trying to score and with the ball already in the catcher's glove was just interminably long. So that whole play was DOA. There was no reason to send him. Nobody out. You've already you had a single, a walk, another, and now an MJ hits a line drive to right field. People are saying in the comment section, I've heard this before, that MJ should have gone to second to force a cutoff. And that the Yankees would have cut off the throw and thrown to second. I would say maybe I would really want to talk to like a baseball, like somebody on the field to say what the proper play is there, because you don't draw the cutoff throw when you're an absolute dead duck.
Yeah, dead man.
Yeah, right? And he would have been a dead duck. Like, it's only if you are psychic enough to know, oh, my catcher is going to be out at the plate. If I'm MJ, I'm thinking they're not sending Salvi there unless he's clearly going to score with nobody out.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. One, MJ Melendez, like you mentioned, the foot speed is the same as Maikel Garcia, but he doesn't steal bases like Maikel Garcia because he doesn't have the same feel for the game. Okay, right. So asking him, or frankly anyone, to be like, oh, look, they made a bad decision to send him, so now I'm going to go get myself picked off to try to save that bad decision. That's too much for Derek Jeter to process. Right? Like, you got to do your job. Everybody else has got to do their job. Like, you're going to make way more mistakes trying to fix somebody else's errors in your game than just playing the game right yourself. Everyone else has got to take care of their own business. And
it's quite possible.
Bad send, period.
It's quite possible if he tried that they tag Salvi and immediately throw it on a second, and suddenly you've just singled into a double play. Like, yeah. There things could happen there. Maybe he should have, but I do not see that as the central mistake there. Central mistake there was Salvador Perez, who's 30. He wasn't fast when he was 24, and now he's 34. He should not have been sent there. How much it cost them? You could argue it may not have cost them a lot, because was it Kyle Isbell who was next? I think it was the next hitter. I think he struck out, and then or no, Tommy Pham brought home the run from third, and then Isbell struck out. Yeah, that's what it was to end the inning. If Salvador had been out, if they just left the bases loaded with one out, a sac fly followed by a strikeout, it might have still led to one run. But the question is, you can't assume the inning would have gone exactly the way it did. So, but the point is that was, that cost them potentially a run in a game they lost by one run. Every mistake is magnified here.
In a game where Garrett Cole didn't lock in and go lights out, like they were getting to him. I mean, they had loud outs in the first, like one to the track. I mean, no, it was a critical mistake. Now I give the team a lot of credit. And I said this last night with some of the folks we were watching with. That could have been like, oh my God, here we go. Look at that. Well, I thought it was really important to get one run in, to not come away from that inning, because they may have folded the tents. It may have been too big for them, and they may have never come back from it. But they did show a lot of fight. I mean, not obviously a lot of things went against them, and there they were, right in it to the very end, forcing you to watch to the very end of the game. And so I will give credit. And, there were, Gurriel. I mean, what a great pickup. I mean,
he was really impressive in this game. Just a veteran's approach, right? With like long at bats. I mean, dude is 40 years old and he played good defense. I mean, he threw a great runner out of the plate. Like, this is a guy
he threw home twice.
On August 31st, the man was in AAA for the Braves, and he is like the number 5 hitter for the Kansas City Royals in the ALDS. And frankly, at this point, is probably the Royals' best option to be batting 5th and playing first base.
Yeah, I was just like, what a great signing. When he picks a guy off at the plate, throws home for the force on the plate, just good, smart. What a just a fantastic pickup. He was in the minors and hurt, and how much do they need him? They need him tremendously. At this point. And so, yeah, that was one of the real positives from this game for me. Listen, I'm going to tell you, if you are looking for positives, positive when it comes to owning a business is making a good first impression, good last impression with your parking lot. A smooth lot, brightly striped, cuts down on accidents, cuts out on problems for you. Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete take care of your parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, are we concerned about the bullpen specifically? Was this such a drastic step back that, the cage is rattled and, what had become this tremendous strength down the stretch is now a problem again?
No, I'm not ready to go there because I'm not sure what we saw was the Royals' best bullpen. I mean, the first thing I'd say is, we talked about it on the last show, the Royals have given up 15 hits in one run, in one earned run in the last 40 bullpen innings. They give up 3 runs in this game, right? 3 runs and 5 hits in 4 innings. And this was also the first game since 1985 where it ended a streak of 28 consecutive games the Royals had won after being tied or leading after 6, right? They didn't lead after 6, but they were tied. They never lost a game. They were tied after 6 innings in 2014 or 2015. But they gave up the run in the 7th inning here. But having said that, this is the one area, like we can talk about the mistakes made, Vance Wilson at third base, sending Salvi there. Yeah. The umpire's mistake. Sure. We got to talk about Matt Quatraro's handling of the bullpen in this game.
Okay.
I don't understand. Like, did he not understand that there's a day off today?
Well, he fired Urseg in there. That's obviously.
Well, he did after
he had a day off.
He brought in Lucas Urseg with 2 outs in the 7th inning. He didn't bring him in with 2 outs in the 7th inning and the go-ahead run on second base. He brought him in with 2 outs in the 7th inning with the go-ahead run in the dugout after he had scored.
Well, I think that part of it, but I think that was part of it was because he knew that it would limit, if they didn't score, it would limit how much they had to use him.
Yes, but the point is now you are losing, right? Like if you were willing, if he was warmed up and ready to go, like if the game was if was on if it was a sufficiently enough a game situation when you were losing by a run, the leverage is even higher when it was still tied. So he was ready to go. You didn't have your number 2 reliever in there. You had Michael Lorenzen, who's a good starter in the bullpen. I'm not saying he's a bad pitcher in that role, but he hasn't proven that he's worthy of like the setup man role. Where was Chris Bubich? We talked about this in the last show. It's like you almost have to build. You have to, when you have a game like this where you have a day off before, day off after. Everybody's rested. You can use your guys more than you normally would because you have a day off the next day. You kind of have to plan your bullpen usage from the back to the front. Like if you have Ursig, I wasn't expecting to see Ursig in the 7th. I was actually almost more upset when he came in because that meant that he was ready to go in the 7th inning. I just figured they were saving him for the 8th inning to potentially go 2 innings in a safe situation or in a tie game. But you got to plan not just for Ursig there, but Bubich. Like where exactly was Chris Bubich? Alex Verdugo was left-handed. Gleyber Torres after him was right-handed, but then Juan Soto's left-handed. Like that was a perfect situation. You had 2 lefties coming up out of 3 batters. Frankly, I probably would have brought him in to face Oswaldo Cabrera, who Lorenzen did strike out before the go-ahead single. Cabrera is a switch hitter, but he has been throughout his career worse against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching. So Quatraro left in Michael Lorenzen, who's been a starter all season long, to pitch to a switch hitter who hits righties better than lefties, and Alex Verdugo, who's a left-handed hitter, rather than go to Chris Bubich, who has been pretty much nails, all since he was, activated from Tommy John surgery in July. I don't get that part of it. And then the other thing I don't get is Daniel Lynch has not given up a run since he was recalled from the minors and put in the bullpen. 20 2/3 scoreless innings. He hasn't pitched yet in the postseason. Like, if you told me he's hurt, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. Except then, why the heck is he on the roster? I don't think he's hurt. I think he's available.
I know he's hurt.
I don't understand. Like, Angel Serpa was amazing in game 2 against the Orioles, but he came in this situation. Okay, maybe you don't want to bring in Daniel Lynch mid-inning. Maybe you want to give him a clean inning. But the fact that they started, to me, starting that inning with Sam Long, the 6th inning with Sam Long, instead of Lynch, that to me was really where the rails started to go off, because Daniel Lynch, to my mind, is a better reliever right now than Sam Long. And they keep going to Sam Long in those situations. It worked against the Orioles. It blew up in their face yesterday.
Well, Jeff Passan was telling us about, basically the flip card that every team has when they go into the game. And a lot of it, he said, has to do with swing planes and what they think, the certain matchups are. And it may just be that the Orioles and Yankees are what they believe their hitters are, what they believe are bad matchups, or at least the portion in the lineup where you'd be thinking about putting him in there are bad matchups for the plane of his pitches and the plane of the swing. That's a big part of what they do nowadays for it. Because, I mean, in season, he's going to pitch because everybody's got to pitch on their turns. Now you're wanting to go best matchup against best matchup. I'm sure that's what they thought it was. I don't think he just had a whim. I don't think this guy's played the numbers all along, and then now it's like, yeah, now I'm going by the seat of my pants.
It's possible. I don't know. And, this is the problem with analysis nowadays, is that the teams can justifiably say, we have data, you don't. And 10 years ago, even that wasn't the case. And now it is. What I will say is, even if the swing plane, even if Sam Long was a tougher matchup for their swing planes, Sam Long's control is not as good as Daniel Lynch's. Sam Long walked, I want to say 3.6 batters per 9 innings this year. Daniel Lynch was down at 2.9, and as a reliever, it was around 2.5. Against a team, again, led the American League in walks. Walks matter. And, Sam Long came in to start the 6th inning, and he walked Alex Verdugo. And Alex Verdugo wound up scoring the tying run. So, it can't only be about swing planes. It also has to, there are other things that go into it. Walk rate is a big one. So that would be my rebuttal. And the other rebuttal simply, okay, then, if the Daniel Lynch has not been a good matchup against any hitter in any game so far, I find that surprising.
Yeah, I am surprised he hadn't gotten in there, but I also know it's kind of, there's a little bit of okay, we have him for this spot and that spot doesn't come about, and then you go buy him. I guess they're thinking about him for a longer stint, right? And that's what they think his role is. I think if they, have to go, if they'd had to go get Waka a little bit earlier, I think you would have seen Lynch. But
Yeah,
I
and
think,
my original thinking was maybe they go for Waka one time through the lineup instead of two, and then give Lynch a turn through the lineup. But once they didn't do that, well, it frees him up. Again, it's like everybody can pitch in this game, and you always have Brady Singer in reserve if this game goes 12 innings or whatever it is. Like you already have a starter who's started more recently than Lynch and has probably the ability to go longer into a game if necessary. So I don't understand why they didn't use Lynch. But ultimately, to me, it's like Lucas Erceg was warming up with the go-ahead run on second base and a left-handed hitter at the plate, and came in one batter later, and it was one batter too late. And how different is this game? And this is just my point: is the postseason is a different. It's a different game, and absolutely, this series with all these weird off days is a different game, and you need the manager to recognize that and adjust his proclivities accordingly. It leads to weird things like using Lucas Erceg in the 7th inning and potentially getting 7 outs, but that's okay. You win this. Like if you told me that he came in and the Royals win the game and he's out for game 2, that's a worthwhile trade. Like every game matters now. Like this was a moral victory the way the Royals played in this game, but there are no moral victories in an ALDS. It's a best of 5. So you play to win the game. You play to win this game. And I just think that Quatraro didn't show sufficient urgency in the 6th and 7th innings of this game, and it cost them.
Yeah. I'm open to it. But I don't think he makes that. I think there was something there in their analytics and their data that said these are the guys to go to. I just, that he lost and you're in the get it right business. I also think you're firing on a team that's better than you. I mean, the Yankees are at home for a reason. They won the American League East. They had a better record. It is frustrating, but this is kind of how the games went, in that second series. The Royals were right there.
Right.
But the Yankees
it very much felt like we talked about it then. It's like, thank God this wasn't the ALDS. Like talk about a flashback, because they lost 3 out of 4, but like they were in every game. But this game felt just like that, where they were in it to the end. They had 3 separate leads in the game, but in the end, a loss is a loss.
So you would like to have seen the pitching be used how?
I would have. I mean, especially knowing that Erceg was prepared to go 2 innings in this game, maybe not 2 1/3, but 2 innings. Frankly, I would have gone. Schreiber got out of that jam in the 5th inning against the right-handed portion of their lineup. And then the Royals took the lead with, I'll give Quatraro credit. He brought in Garrett Hampson. We talk about that move that did work. You pinch it for Kyle Isbell there against a lefty. Tim Hill, who's, a sidewinder, and so has big platoon splits. Now, getting a right-handed bat in there in that situation was huge. And then they took advantage of the error by Anthony Volpe, got, the lead back. But going to the 6th inning, 12 outs to go, I would have gone to Kris Bubic. Ideally for 2 innings, and then Erceg for 2. I mean, when the 6th inning started, Verdugo led off. It was going to be a lefty, Verdugo, then Gleyber Torres a righty, then Juan Soto a lefty. At the very least, go to Bubic there, and maybe if you have 2 on and 1 out for Aaron Judge, maybe then you have to go to a right-hander. But my plan would have been to try and get through the 6th and the 7th with Bubic, go to Erceg in the 8th and 9th. Yeah, you know what? I think sometimes teams feel almost like they have an obligation to use all the guys on their roster. Like you don't want to have a pitcher on your roster who doesn't throw a single game in the postseason, but it's like he'll forgive you if he gets a ring.
Yeah.
So if you'd gone there and it's the Bubic and Erceg show every game this series, that's okay, right? The ALCS there'll be 7 games in 9 days potentially. You'll use your full roster then. This is not the series to use. Michael Lorenzen and Sam Long in a 1-run game. If it was a 3, if it was 5-2, okay, I get it. This game was never, differentiated by more than a single run at any point. And I just don't think the Royals should be using what I consider to be at best their 5th and 6th best relievers, maybe their 4th and 5th best relievers in the 6th and 7th innings of that game.
Yeah, we had some people say, well, don't overreact. It's just one game. Blake makes a good point. You can't overreact to one game in the playoffs. Each game is enormous. And I tend to agree.
Exactly.
You got to do everything you can to win it, for sure. All right. So, what do you think they're going to do differently? How do you think the lineup's going to look? This next time around, is you stick with what you got? How do you approach it differently this time?
Well, I mean, the big difference is we have Cole Reagans going, and I am so excited to see Cole Reagans join the list of Yankee killers. Like this, I've been kind of dreaming about this since mid-season when it looked like the Royals had a chance to make the playoffs in the first place. As a lefty pitching in Yankee Stadium, that's always something I want to see. I want to say it was Paul Splittorff who was kind of like known as the Yankee killer in the ALCS back in the 70s. And Cole Reagans throws like 10 miles an hour faster than Paul Splittorff. So I think, we're going to have, the better starting pitcher. Like Carlos Rodon is a good pitcher, but he's getting older. He had a completely lost season last year. He was hurt in his first year in New York. He gave up 31 home runs this year. So,
He also might strike out 13.
He might, but Reagans could too. I mean, Rodon struck out 195 batters. Cole Reagans struck out 223 and gave up 15 homers versus 31. Now, some of that's the stadium, yes, but I just think that I'm really excited for the possibility. Cole just goes out there and shoves for 6 innings, and then maybe this game we can turn it over to just Bubic and Ursig to get out of it. So that's obviously the big thing. If they win this game, you come back. It's a best of 3, and you have 2 out of 3 in Kansas City. Right. So there's very much in the series. If they lose this game, then you're talking about then it's a Hail Mary. But in terms of the lineup, they're going to be facing a lefty. So I would assume the lineup will be different. This is the first lefty they're seeing in the postseason because the lineup's been very steady. The only change is Renfroe for Pham, I think, in game 2 against Baltimore. Otherwise, it's been the same 9 guys. Melendez will sit. Melendez has been platooned pretty strictly. I assume Renfroe will be in there. Like, as we saw in this game, power is such a tool in this ballpark because both teams got a little league home run out of this game, right? I mean, Gleiber hits a opposite field ball with 339 feet. It's a home run in one stadium in all of America, and it was Yankee Stadium. But we didn't have too much time to be upset about it because MJ came back and hit one. I think it was a home run in 3 parks. So it balanced out. But the point is, I want guys who hit the ball in the air. In fact, the one other thing is it's not a huge thing, but I do wonder, I was wondering this at the time, in the 8th inning with 2 out and a man on base, looking at the box score here, with 2 outs and a man on first base, Michael Garcia batted against Luke Weaver. And I thought at that moment, is this a good time to use Paul DeJong? I want the chance at the random 340-foot pop-up that turns into a home run in the stadium, which would have been lead changing, right? And they stuck with Michael, who's been pretty good in the playoffs so far, and he struck out. But if DeJong is on the roster like this, I feel like this is the stadium to use him in. I wonder if we'll see him in this game. He has hit right-handers better than lefties this year, but for his career, he hits lefties better. So I'd like to see DeJong get a start in this ballpark. So I assume he will be, he might be in there. Renfroe will probably be in there. Beyond that, the question is, does Felix Fermin get a start? I hope they start Massey, even though it's a lefty, because again, he's got the pop, and the alternative would be presumably Garrett Hampson, but I could see them starting Michael Garcia at second base and DeJong at third. That's the other possibility. Do you sit Massey for DeJong, keep Massey as a kind of your first pinch hitter off the bench? Actually, with him and Melendez, you'd have 2 very good pinch hitters off the bench. But I personally would like to see DeJong in the lineup, and I'd like to see Freddie Fermin get a chance. And ideally, frankly, I'd like to see him catch. I mean, that was the other thing. We can talk all we want about the replay office bungling that. But if Salvador Perez makes it even halfway decent throw, we're not having this discussion. Like, if he should have been out. And Freddie, at this point in his career, is a better thrower than Salvi. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think we will see Fermin. I think they're going to want to get him in, and they're going to want to play the defense. DeJong's the one. I don't know. I mean, he's been so cold. I mean, but
he's streaky, and that's the whole point. Is like you just and the point of using him is just run into one. If he runs
Right.
into one, he strikes out 4 times, I don't care. Because if he runs into one in this park, it's gone.
And that's what we talked about with MJ Melendez. I mean, he ran into a pop fly that went out, right? So it looks like a great night because of the ballpark. And that's, yeah, it's exactly what you're talking about. I do agree. All right. So do you like their chances in this one? I mean, you like Reagan's. Do you like their chances?
I do. I don't think the moment is too big for them. I mean, we could talk about, the ghosts of the stadium, but again, I think the command was as much the Yankees being smart at the plate as the Royals being wild. And the reality is, they blew a lead. They came back and took the lead again. They blew it again. They took the lead again, and they might not have given up another lead if the umpires had done their job. So they played this game very, very tough. They've had a day to, think about it. I think they're well led. They've got the veterans on the team. They've got, we're still waiting for Bobby Witt to just have a put on the exhibition that we're waiting for, the George Brett game. Like, he obviously had the big hits in games 1 and 2, but he has been kind of quiet. He hit the ball. He had 2 very well hit balls in this game that were just run down. But I think he's hitting the ball hard. The thing is, he's really had like almost no extra base hits in like 2 weeks. And I would not be shocked if we find out after the season's over that the ball that hit him on the hand in late August did affect him somehow. But the exit velocities are still there. So I think he's just hitting into bad luck, and the potential for him to go out there and, have a 3-for-4 game and, a homer, a double, a stolen base, etc., like fill up the stat sheet like we know he can. I like their chances. The biggest thing is, can they keep Aaron Judge in check, right? They did a very good job of pitching Aaron Judge in this game, right? It wasn't just Waka who handled him very well, but I mean, he went 0-for-4 with a walk and 3 strikeouts. I'll take that. The problem is, the rest of them. I mean, Alex Verdugo killed them, right? And that's baseball, right? Sometimes the number 9 hitters the hero.
Well, had the Royals won, they're going to be back with MJ Melendez. Got us. I mean, It wasn't Bobby Witt. It wasn't Sal Perez.
Exactly.
It was MJ Melendez.
Right.
They've been talking about the same way. We'll talk about what this series means for how the season will be viewed. We'll do that next. We're always brought to you by some great Royals fans themselves. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, celebrating 30 years serving Kansas City. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, Randy, what does the series do? Does it have any impact on how we're going to view this season? If they would lose this series, does it tarnish the season in any way? Can it only add to it? I'm still of the opinion we're talking house money here.
Yeah, no, the only way it tarnishes it is because how many chances do you actually get to play the New York Yankees in the postseason? Like, to me personally, this series does matter more because it's the Yankees. So maybe younger fans, it might not matter as much, not just in the sense of remembering the Yankee Royals rivalries, but also frankly remembering the Yankee dynasty of like the late 90s, right? Like, if you're under the age of 30, you may not have a very strong memory of the Yankees as the best team in baseball at all, which frankly, I think is delightful that there's an entire generation of baseball fans who have no memory of the Yankees as, the juggernaut of the sport. I'd love to keep that going. So to me, that's really the only, if they lose this series, they won 86 games, they went to the playoffs, they won a playoff round. Like, you're one of the final 8 teams in a year where nobody expected them to be above 500. This has been a great year, right? It's house money, like you said. But if they win this series, no matter what happens after that, in my mind, anytime you make it to the Final Four, the LCS round, you have had a successful season. I don't care if you're the Dodgers or the Yankees. Like, you cannot expect to go beyond that. Like, the Final 4 teams, those are good. Those are the teams when you remember the season, you generally remember who won the World Series, but who they played. And I'm pretty good at remembering, okay, who played in the ALCS and the NLCS. I could not name all 12 playoff teams from,
Right.
2022 or whatever. But I can generally remember the last 4. So if you make it to the LCS round and then you beat the Yankees to get there, then like at that point, everything is gravy. So to me, it's not that it'll tarnish the legacy. It's just that they have a chance. If they win this round, I mean, where would you rank this among all-time Royal seasons, even if they lose in the LCS round? Right? You're going to have obviously the 2 World Championships, and I would say the 2 World
runner-ups.
Series. Right, the 2 World Series, 1980, their first World Series, and then 2014 obviously was it had shades of this year, and they got to Game 7, right? And nobody really saw that coming either. But after those 4 years, I mean, even if you lose in the LCS round, of all the LCS that you've been to, 76, 77, 78, you lost to the Yankees. 84, nobody remembers 84. Like, you won 84 games and Scott swept by the Tigers. This would be the 5th best season in Royals history, and I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah,
so that's what they're going for.
You think it's clear it'd be the 5th best season if they beat the Yankees? You're saying?
If they beat the Yankees, I mean, I'm just trying to think of what other year besides 85, 2015, 2014, and 1980. Yeah, it's the 5th best. I mean, you want to put 76 because they finally made the playoffs, but they lost to the Yankees in the playoffs.
Well, they have so remarkably few after being a team that was like, look at all the playoffs this young franchise has in all the years. They have so remarkably few playoff seasons.
Right. Well, that's definitely part of it, right? But the point is, I don't think there's another year I'd put ahead of it.
Yeah, and so many of their early ones, you were right in the LCS. I mean, that's where you started.
Right.
And we didn't have these rounds, so it does make it difficult to judge through eras. I mean, you'd almost have to look at maybe some second place finishes that were they didn't even get into the playoffs and say was that a better team and so on and so forth. I do think it's all house money. I think there's tremendous opportunity to beat the Yankees, and I think that'll do wonders for the team. But even losing to the Yankees, I mean, I think that just makes the fire burn hotter. I mean, I think it brings back. I think it connects generations. To be honest with you,
absolutely.
Both parts like us that remember. I remember my mom and me sitting and crying, watching Freddie Patek cry in the dugout after the Yankees had won. It was like the first time I was crushed. The first time my soul was taken from me was losing to the Yankees in the playoffs in the 70s. It's one of my earliest sports memories. And so for young people, father and son to watch the Royals lose like this, that'll be a connection. I mean, so I 100% agree. There's no negative whatsoever that can come from losing this.
We were not supposed to be here, and
they're not supposed to be here, but they earned their way here. It's not a
absolutely no. They made it here, and I mean, again, they unlike 76, 77, like you said, they didn't just get into the LCS. They had to win a round to get here, and we already have. If nothing else, look, that Baltimore series, we'll remember. Like, that was a great, tight, close game with some Houdini moments getting out of jams, and then Bobby Witt with not one but 2 go-ahead hits late in the game. So that's we've got memories for this season already.
I think if they had lost to the Orioles, we'd be somewhat saying this is just 0-3, and the other teams weren't as good because like that 0-3 team beat up on the Tigers, who were god awful, and this team went 12-1 against the White Sox. And so we'd say, hey, it was a 500 team that had the White Sox in their division.
And 12 playoff teams instead of 8. In 03, like there were only 8 playoff teams. That's part of it too. So yes, I agree that the fact
by
that
beating the Orioles, it validated the whole season.
It made it real, 100%. And they did it their way with pitching, right? With they didn't have the offense, but they had pitching. This game, at least they scored 5 runs. And 2 of them were a cheap home run, but they were getting on base. The offense seemed to show some signs of coming out of its doldrums. Like I said, Yuli Gurriel, extended the lineup with some really professional at bats. So you just have to hope that keeps going.
Yeah. Do you, what's at stake for Quatraro? Does he need to win 1 or 2 here, or does he lose some?
I mean, I think, and look, when I'm criticizing the decisions he's making in this game, I'm holding him to a higher standard than, pretty much any Royals manager in a generation, right? I say this stuff in part because I know that he would get it. He understands what I'm talking about. And like you said, I'm sure they have their reasons for doing it. I just don't necessarily understand them. Sam McDowell actually had a really great article in the Kansas City Star right before the playoffs started. That was it led off with an anecdote of Quatraro being hired, but it was a lot about JJ Piccolo and how JJ, to his immense credit, kind of acknowledged that the organization needed, like what had fallen behind, it needed outside voices, right? And Quatraro was one of those outside voices. But the story told of basically the interview in Quatraro, they were setting up hypothetical like scenarios as a manager, tactical decisions. What do you do? What's your lineup in this situation? And the way Quatraro answered, like the Royals didn't understand his answer until he had to explain it to them. I'm doing this because in the game A, B, and C will happen, and I will have my pinch hitter ready when C happen. Like thinking 3 moves ahead was something that just blew the Royals away. And it's like, yes, that is what a manager needs to do. And that's finally, I've been waiting my whole life for a manager, a tactical manager like Matt Quatraro. So, regardless of my complaints about one specific game, I still think he's the manager that I've been waiting for. Tactically, everything I see about him is that he is, Ned Yost's equivalent in terms of just running the clubhouse and what he did last year and keeping that team from falling apart in the second half. And obviously the improvement this year, like, if the Royals are able to sign him to a long-term extension after this winter, no matter what happens in the series, I'm all for it. I think they should. So I think his reputation is secure, at least right now.
I think extensions are inevitable for both manager and general manager. Don't you?
Yeah, I would be somewhat surprised and probably a little disappointed if we don't see that this winter.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I do think he's got his reasons for what he did and why they went to, but it doesn't mean they were the right ones.
Right. Well, right. That doesn't mean we can't criticize them and question them. And if they have their reasons, okay, but they're in the get it right business. So anything we can say that might, shed some light on it would be helpful.
All right. Let's close with this. What's your prediction on the game? What kind of game do you see? Who wins? What's the score?
I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'd love to see the Royals bats come alive again. And, 5 runs I'd be thrilled with, but I think it's going to be, I'm going to say it's going to be the Royals 4, Yankees 2. I think it's going to be Cole Reagans. You can't.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh. even playoff game scores were mind melding on.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think 4-2. I see them getting to Rodon, and I see Reagans. I see Reagans going 6, and then then the big boys are up in the bullpen and they get it done. So, yeah, I think 4-2. Plus, that's just the nature of baseball. And I think these are 2 pretty close teams, but the better starting pitcher is Reagans. I hope this is not the day that Rodon comes out and deals, because he can.
Right. No, he absolutely can. And your hope is that, even if he does, that he's prone to fly balls, and it's the wrong ballpark for that. But at the same time, you could easily see a great Reagans outing ruined by a pop-up. I mean, the home run that Walker gave up was just a joke. And was not in any way his fault. So it just adds variance to this, to a game that should be very tight to begin with. It very well may be determined by which team can hit a can of corn in another park.
Can you tell we're a Royals podcast here with these predictions?
The 13-2 Royals prediction there. Yeah, that's a little optimistic, but I like the sentiment.
That's just me, because a lot of times I like, usually with the Chiefs, there's no point picking like right at the spread. So I'll be like, all right, give me the Chiefs 37-17. Right. And back in the day,
I was going to say recently that hasn't worked in a long, long time, but
I gave up on that last year. I got out of that ass kicking, although I did call for it against the Saints. But we'll see if that happens. That's the other aspect of this, is we're going to be watching multiple TVs.
It's
2 games going at once.
The sports apocalypse. It's amazing. First time like ever that the Royals are in a playoff game simultaneously with the Chiefs playing. In any era. I mean, in 85, the Chiefs, the game 7 was a Sunday. The Chiefs played during the day at Arrowhead, I believe, because George Brett and Whitey Herzog attended the game together.
Yeah.
All right. Old friends. Now one's manager for, the Cardinals and one's playing for the Royals. They attended the game together and then went to, but the game 7 was a night game. So yeah, I can't think of a situation where I'm going to have 2 screens up quite like this before. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun, no doubt. Listen, speaking of awesome, that's our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's best. One contractor, all things parking lot. You can find them online at gannasphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. That's 816-484-3338. We got to check some schedules and see, but we're doing extra Kaufman Corner podcast. So with each game, make sure you're following Randy and I on Twitter to see when we're going to be coming up next. We got to see what's happening here over the next couple of days, but and maybe a Joe Sheehan appearance,
Possibly, yes,
right?
Possibly. We'll see.
Coming in.
We'll see if we'll see if we'll invite him on the show. If things don't go well for the Royals here in the next couple of days, maybe we'll maybe we'll pass on that. But we would like to have him on the show.
By the way, how about Matt? My daughter has a choir concert from 7 to 10 on Monday. My daughter's got dance on Monday as well. But
if you have a Kansas City event and they're not postponing it, that's on them.
Yeah, I know. And I was, the one thing I will say is God bless my daughter. She's like, it's all right, Dad. I know you're not going to be there. I'm not. I at least have the excuse of it's my job.
It's your job.
I have to watch this thing. All right, Randy, great stuff as always. We'll be back at it here in the next couple of days. We'll be breaking down game number 2 of the American League Division Series. For the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining us here on Kaufman Corner.